Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the I want. In today's video, I want to talk about SUZUME no tojimari, or SUZUME for short. I will talk about spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the movie yet and still want to, then just come back after you've watched it. SUZUME is a Japanese animated film, or motion picture if you will, about a 16-year-old girl named Suzume. Suzume, who appears to have lost her parents, currently lives with her aunt in Kyushu. One day, on her way to school, she meets a handsome guy who asks her for the local ruins because he's looking for a door. And he stays as cryptic as he sounds. She points him to an old, abandoned town in the mountains, and seized by curiosity, decides to follow him. At least she has some sense of self-awareness, because she's wondering if this already counts as stalking. She wanders around in the old bathhouse of the abandoned town and finds a door standing on its own. She opens it, and looking through it, she sees a whole different world. But when she steps through the door, it's still her world. So stepping back and forth, she remains in the same world. Behind the door, still in the same world, she finds something on the ground, picks it up, and it comes to life and jumps away. Back at school, they get an earthquake warning, and there's suddenly smoke in the mountains only she can see, and it happens to be the spot where the ruins of the old bathhouse are. She runs back and finds a guy who's trying to close the door, which she left open. He explains that the door is a gate that contains the smoke, which he calls the worm, and is supposed to be sealed away by a keystone, but that keystone is missing. Together they manage to close the door, but the guy gets wounded in the process, so Suzume takes him home to treat his injury, and he explains that keeping these doors shut is his job. A cat appears by her window, Suzume feeds it, and the cat turns the guy, who introduced himself as Sota, into a chair. Turns out the cat is the thing she touched, and by touching it, she freed it. They try to catch a cat, not only to turn Sota back into a human, but also because they figured out that it has something to do with the keystone. They follow the cat's trail via social media, because the cat is going viral, and start calling it Daijin. The cat appears at different abandoned places with such gates that are supposed to contain the worm, and Suzume and Sota close them together. If they don't close the gates in time, the smoke worm would cause a natural disaster. Their first destination is Ehime, and after closing the door, Suzume spends the night at Chika's, a girl who helped her reach the abandoned place with the gate. The next morning, Suzume complains to Chika about people who just aren't waking up, and Chika tells her if it's a guy, just kiss him. This movie would not pass the Bechdel test. Suzume takes this advice to heart, and when Sota once again has a hard time waking up, she actually attempts to kiss him in his chair form, but he wakes up before she can. As they continue to search for the cat, Suzume learns from Sota in the abandoned Kobe amusement park that the world she can see through the door is the ever after. It's a place where all timelines exist at the same time, and it's the place where all the souls go after death, I presume. It's also called the domain of the departed. As always, Sota has a hard time waking up the next day because he's slowly turning into a keystone himself, and we finally get a chair kiss. The next destination is Tokyo, where the showdown is taking place. The smoke worm has a head and a tail, so to keep it sealed away, there are 2 keystones needed. But with the western pillar gone, which has turned into Daijin, the tail is roaming free, and the head manages to break out as well, because the second keystone is no longer able to contain the worm by itself. Now that its head is out as well, the worm is complete, and if it were to drop down, the whole earth and its people would perish. They finally realize that Sota is turning into a keystone, despite Daijin straight up telling him, and Suzume seals the worm with keystone Sota. Suzume, who wants to free Sota of course because apparently he's the love of her life, locates Sota's hospitalized grandpa and learns that she can enter the ever after as a living being because she accidentally did so as a child. So she can do it again, she just has to find the same door. And since the keystone is in the ever after, that's what she has to do to free Sota. When she sets out for her old hometown, she runs into a friend of Sota whom she met before at Sota's apartment, and her aunt, who managed to locate Suzume in Tokyo. And together the four of them, including Daijin, start their road trip to Fukushima. On their way to Suzume's old home, the other keystone, Sadaijin, suddenly appears and joins the group. And we have a weird parking lot scene where Suzume's aunt just vents out all her bottled up emotions, but only the negative ones until she faints. Back at her former home, she quickly finds the door and jumps into the ever after with a traumatic "to see the person I love." Daijin helps Suzume free Sota and turns back into a keystone. And we get another chair kiss. Suzume is surprised that Daijin helps her because she thought Daijin was the one opening the doors, but it turns out Daijin was the one guiding them to the open doors so they can close them. With both keystones returned, Suzume and Sota seal the worm once and for all, or for now at least. Before leaving the Ever After, Suzume meets her younger self. When Suzume was in the Ever After as a child, she thought she'd met her mother, but it turns out it was just her future self. The movie ends with Sota returning to Tokyo and Suzume going home with her aunt. But after the credits, we see Sota comes back for Suzume. As you could probably tell, Suzume isn't my favorite movie. Out of all the characters, Daijin and Sota's friend Serizawa were my favorites. Serizawa is just the best. He doesn't know what's going on, he just accepts that this girl who's looking for his friend wants to do so in Fukushima. So he takes her there, no questions asked. He also tries to lift up the mood by cracking jokes and doesn't lose his spirit even though his jokes fall on deaf ears. Sota and Suzume are just because Sota and Suzume just seem a bit stupid. Suzume is in love with a guy she knows for 5 minutes and 3 days as a chair, and Sota didn't realize that he was a keystone, even though Daijin told him. He actually told him. Now, apart from being a dumb teenager, teenagers tend to quickly fall in love. Okay, fine. But there is an age gap I just don't like. He's a college student who's already taking his teacher employment exams, so he's definitely older than 20. I just don't like the idea of people older than 20 dating 16-year-olds. I know it's fictional, but age gaps still bother me. Most of the time. I also think the plot would have been more emotional if Suzume was mourning the loss of her beloved chair more than the loss of a guy who's too old for her and who she's known for 5 minutes. I also didn't like the resolution of the whole parking lot scene because we have 2 whole minutes of the aunt listing all her negative thoughts and feelings she'd had over the past 10 years. And then we get like 14 or 17 seconds if we're nice, where she just mentions, but you also know there's good stuff, right? And that's it. No specifics, no details. Basically, there are 2 major points. If they would have been different, I actually might have liked the movie. Those points being the loss of her chair and Sota being a mature guy. So for example, instead of, oh no, I'm losing Sota, I think it would have been better if Suzume was like, oh no, I'm losing the chair my mom built with love and dedication and is one of the few things that I have left of her. And the other example being, instead of, oh, I love you guy who's too old for me and I barely know. Okay, but let's wait until you're old enough. Because frankly, it kind of seems that he just waited for her to be legal. I don't know how much time passed until he returns. I think it's about half a year, so it's summer when the story starts and it's winter when they meet again. So I guess if that's just half a year, she's not technically legal yet. But that's what it felt like to me. I would have preferred, oh, I love you guy that is too old for me and I barely know. Sorry, but you're too young. You should find someone age appropriate. As will I, considering I'm interested in relationships in the first place. So overall the plot was too shallow for my taste and the romance wasn't convincing. I think if the plot would have focused more on the loss of Suzume's mother and Suzume getting over her mother's loss with the help of her friends, it would have been so much better, in my opinion. Okay, but since I don't want to just talk about the negative points, I also have a few good points. I of course liked the animation, which shouldn't come as a surprise. I also liked the musical score very much. And I also have 2 scenes I very liked. The best scene of the entire movie was the car scene. When Serizawa runs into Suzume and offers her to take her to Fukushima, or, well, he doesn't know it's going to Fukushima. He just offers her a ride because he knows that she's looking for him. Then her aunt comes and finds them, and it's like this whole chaotic scene, and it's just so much fun. It was a pinnacle of comedy in this film. And the other scene I liked a lot was the almost final scene in the Ever After, when everything turns back to normal and Suzume meets her younger self. And it's this kind of plot twist where we realize that she hasn't met her mother back when she was a child, but her future self. Maybe that's even a hint that she looks a bit like her mother. I thought that scene was quite touching. So yeah, that's my take on SUZUME no Tojimari. What did you think of the movie? Did you like the movie or not? Or do you maybe share some of my sentiments? Let me know in the comments below. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topic you'd like to hear me ramble about, then leave your suggestions in the comments. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!